Are we in a police state? Is that what's happening? Is everything turned into a militarized zone? If you are watching what's happening in Los Angeles, I myself am in Los Angeles, so I have been in the thick of it in many ways. You might feel that way. It might look like that. People are being grabbed off the streets by people who sometimes don't have identification. We are in a situation right now where everything that people have been warning about, our experts in fascism, people I've spoken to and had on the show, people like Jason Stanley, and have said, hey, democracy is in danger. This is why. This past week, we've seen the federal government do things here in California that were previously unthinkable. And as citizens, we're all sitting around going, okay, now's the time that we have to act because there are no kings here. But we're also looking to our elected officials to speak up and say, no, this is illegal behavior. If we're going to talk about the rule of law, all right, if the Republicans are going to say it's all about the rule of law, well, that starts with the government itself actually abiding by the rule of law. And a lot of what they're doing is illegal, which is why I'm incredibly excited to have on the show tonight California State Senator who is former law enforcement. Okay, so this is somebody who can speak to both policy and law. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring him onto the show. Senator Steve Padilla. Hi,
Hi,
welcome.
thank you.
Oh, welcome to Punching Up. What's this? Your background, because this is a complex background, an interesting background. And
Done a lot
so
of stuff.
there's a lot of stuff. So you're former law enforcement, but you're now a lawmaker. And I believe, can you tell us a little bit about that journey so that we can have a full understanding of what we're looking at right
Sure, sure. Well, my professional background's in law and public policy.
now?
Before that, I was in law enforcement right out of high school, very young, ripe old age of 19. I've worked in every sector focusing on public policy in one way or another. So I've been in the private sector doing advocacy work on a lot of complicated governmental issues from land use to environmental justice and other things. I've worn a lot of hats in the official space, from being a mayor to a councilman to a port commissioner to chairman of California's Coastal Commission, which controls land use up and down the whole state of California, doing work with the Council on Foreign Relations on U.S. immigration policy. So I've been around a minute in this space, and certainly now serving in the Senate, in the largest state in the union by population, to observe what's happening is disturbing in many ways.
It is. And I remember, and it was probably only a week or so ago now, but it feels like forever ago, seeing down in the San Diego area, it's what it looked to be smoke bombs being deployed. It looked like, families were just trying to enjoy dinner at a local restaurant, supporting a local business, putting money into the economy. And then the Trump administration decided to disrupt all that. Can you tell us what happened there?
Well, it was kind of appalling, to be honest. I mean, what we were really seeing there was a lot of performance for a certain audience. Look at how tough we are. Look at we're gonna get rid of people that don't belong here, that are taking something from us, and they've been pretty successful in setting that narrative for a number of years. And the real problem with that narrative is that a lot of it's false, and a lot of it gets people very angry and to act to their worst instincts instead of their best. Most people who are here undocumented are violating a civil provision of U.S. law, not criminal. Most of them are not criminals, and most of them work and pay taxes. And so there are economic impacts to our economy here, to the things we rely on and services and things we buy that are stupidly being all of a sudden forgotten. There's a expenditure of public funds, federal and otherwise, that are being spent on a show that could be accomplished by other means. And frankly, in the case of what you referred to in San Diego, that happened in my district. A very successful, prominent couple of restaurants in a part of my district, very successful, very beloved by the community, had a search warrant executed with tactical gear and concussion grenades and smoke bombs during dinner hours when families were dining there with their kids. And it resulted in some scary moments for the people dining there, the customers. Kids were crying on their parents' laps, wondering what the hell was going on. And so I thought to myself, my God, there must be some serious, RICO racketeering. They must be trafficking children. There must be some violent crime, violent potential here for the immigration, the federal officials to go in and execute a search warrant with that kind of approach, right? And so we pulled the affidavit and the search warrant, and looked at it page by page, and turns out two things. One, the focus of the enforcement was largely about unlawfully employed folks. So, an operator was employing people who were undocumented intentionally and unlawfully in order to abuse them. Like, you can't have breaks, you work too many hours. So,
Mhm.
under the ruse of, oh, we're concerned about the workers, and it's the operator owners doing something breaking federal law, right? So we gotta protect those workers, and they're there unlawfully. And then all so there's a form when you get employed. That if you hire folks, called an I-9 form, you have to prove your ability to legally work in the United States. These are folks that didn't have documents or had fraudulent documents, right? But this is about fake IDs. It's about having no lawful status, being employed in the U.S. without status.
Mm-hmm.
And that I kept turning the pages, and I kept saying, okay, where's the
Where's the
rest of this?
danger
Like,
here?
where's the big danger? Because
Yeah.
most of us who ever been to a restaurant, we know that the employees and the operators are pretty much at the restaurant before and after hours,
Mm-hmm.
not when people are on the patio with their toddlers on their lap,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that approach just reinforced for me that it was more performative and political. And,
Mm-hmm.
and frankly, to be fair to the officers who are the federal enforcement agents, who are just basically trying to do their job and follow the orders that they're given,
Mm-hmm.
they're put in a horrible situation too, right? And so they're being abused in some way because they're being used in ways that really would not normally be used.
Well, let's
And
talk
they
about
know
that. Let's
they
talk
know
about
that.
that. Because you come from a law enforcement perspective, and so we're seeing abuse, waste, and fraud of the law enforcement being deployed against communities and disrupting communities. And so, when I was out there, I actually went out to Paramount over the weekend. And so when I'm out there, I'm saying to people, hey, you could be taking orders for a lot of different things right now, like fries. So let's talk about it. What does it look like from the law enforcement perspective to be able to say, you know what, not my cup of tea. I'd like to move into a different line of work, or like, because it feels like we're at, like, what's at stake here? It feels like we're at a critical juncture where people are going to have to start making decisions about what feels morally okay to do, and then also still be able to support their families.
Yeah, Maya, you're absolutely right. It's a horrible position to put people in, and there are many people, both on the enforcement side, on the active duty in uniform, currently active people in different law enforcement agencies who privately will tell you they don't like being put in this position. This is not normally how they would operationalize this. This is not how they would prioritize this,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they're being put under pressure. I'm not excusing that by any measure. Let me be clear. I think in the case of San Diego, again, I would just say the other thing, let me wrap that story up. The whole impetus for that whole search warrant was about the owner operator, right? But who did they go in and haul out of there?
Mm-hmm.
The guys in the back chopping vegetables, the workers.
Yeah.
So look, and I appreciate the owners; they're great people, but it was so many inconsistencies that led to the situation that we experienced. And I think, to your point more broadly, yeah, we've seen it at some levels in U.S. attorneys' offices and the Justice Department. We've seen it in different departments. They don't get a lot of the press they should, but there have been principled people whose morals and ethics and conscience will not allow them to continue to participate that have resigned. Career prosecutors in one of the biggest districts in the United States, U.S. attorney up in the federal district near D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the biggest, most important one, resigned. Career prosecutors resigning. So people are having to speak up, and people are having to stand up, and people are having to point out the inconsistencies, the moral inconsistencies about setting up people designed to protect us against our own communities. And again, it's performative. This is all designed to appeal to a certain audience of people who want to blame everything on immigrants to this country for all the problems they have in their world. And it's sad, and it's a failure of leadership.
It's absolutely a failure of leadership. And when I see those smoke grenades, I go, okay, here's the smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors. And so I think people need to repeat that over and over again. And I think another thing that needs to be repeated is what you just said about the fact that it is a civil offense. To be here undocumented is a civil offense, not a criminal offense. I've noticed more and more people talking about that. Can you dig into that a little bit more so that people can have an understanding? I want it to be seared into people's brains that it is very much, it's paperwork. It's civil. It's not meant to be, we're going in with tactical vests and tackling people to the ground who are just trying to feed their families, because they could be out there actually criming, right? Criming could be happening, but they're choosing to do something like work as a waiter or a dishwasher or some other capacity in a restaurant in a way to serve the community literally and figuratively. So more.
Yeah. No, I mean, my thinking on that is that people forget how this is supposed to be from the beginning. We're a nation of immigrants from the beginning, and certainly not perfect, certainly trying to evolve towards a more perfect union. But throughout our history, we've always respected immigration. And the way we set up our laws around immigration was never designed to be primarily about protecting what's ours. This is ours, that's yours, and you can't come here. That's never been the premise of our immigration laws or even our agencies that protect our borders, integrity of borders. It's always been we know that immigration is good. We know that it helps our economy. We know it helps our society. We know it helps us be competitive in the world. The immigration laws fundamentally have been about how does it work? We know immigration benefits our country. We're a nation of immigrants. But how do we sort this out? How do we manage this in a meaningful way that's, the flow of people coming, when they're here, what they're here for? Can they work here? Can they get educated here? Can they invent things here? Can they be valuable additions to the American family? And that's what our system was always set up. The idea of building kind of walls to keep folks out or protecting the physical boundaries was something that was historically always designed for exigent circumstances. Before 9/11, the Coast Guard, for example, fell under a civilian department of the U.S. government, not under Homeland Security. And there's a reason why in peace times they were part of transportation, right? Coast Guard, right? And then only in wartime, only when there was a war, were they brought into the jurisdiction of the Department of Defense to protect the borders, So our whole system was never designed to be, this is ours, not yours. You can't come here. We're here now, so you keep out. But the conversation about immigration and our immigration laws in recent years, right, have been sort of warped into that's the premise of the conversation. Immigration and laws are all about, this is ours, that's yours, you keep out. Because if you come here, you're taking something from me. And that whole conversation is kind of ignorant and stupid because it's based on false stuff. That's never been the case. And oh, by the way, let's not forget that there have been many, many opportunities in recent history for bipartisan immigration reform.
Yeah.
How do we make this whole system, which is big and complicated and involves a lot of people, how do we sort this out in a smart way? How do we make this work? And because of people who are in the extremes, who give in to wanting to scapegoat immigrants, period, and appeal to their worst instincts, they killed twice 2 bipartisan efforts in the Congress to have meaningful immigration reform, which is what we should be focused on and talking about.
Right.
Is how do we make our system meaningful for people? Instead of, like the Bronze Age, let's build a moat with alligators and a drawbridge. That's not the real world. That's not the 21st century. But here we are, and now we're having stunts, and we're going around with quotas to round up people who really are here on civil violations of the law. We're blowing tons of money on it, and money that we could use more smartly.
Yeah, we could definitely use that money to invest in our communities. And I love that the castle and moat analogy, because Right now we have AI. We could be using it perhaps to create better systems to reform the way immigration works. And instead, we're using it to track people, and the immigration OS is about tracking people down as opposed to facilitating things. It drives me nuts. There was an audience question about is there anything that California lawmakers can do to stop what's happening right now, because I do feel like we're being used as a pawn in this. We're being used. You're making an example out of us. So what can be done?
Yes, there are, and as you're probably aware, you heard Governor Newsom speak to some of that in his comments yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The Attorney General Rob Bonta, the legislature. We've allocated early this year some substantial resources to our Department of Justice in California. We took that action early this year in January, February. Mm-hmm. That allocated substantial resources to beef up the California DOJ to be in court and to challenge in court so many of the actions that we've seen taken. Most recently, as you know, just within the last 24 hours, the DOJ in California, the Attorney General, along with many other attorneys general throughout the U.S., have filed petitions, first for what we call injunctive relief, and then petitions basically challenging the president's proper exercise of authority. He's abusing a federal statute that lays out very specific circumstances under which a president can federalize the National Guard, deploy them without being requested by the governor of the state. We think that he's in violation of that. We think it's a strong case, but we are taking those actions. And we're also taking actions to make sure Californians, no matter where you are, know your rights, know how to respond in uncomfortable situations, and are plugged into resources to help folks. I think everyone agrees. We all want our communities to be safe. Yes, there are many cases where we do want our nation's borders integrity to be protected. We don't want harmful people coming here from outside of our nation to do us harm or do our communities harm. Nobody wants that. And the idea that because we think the way they're approaching this is wrong, that somehow we're helping that, the bad guys to come and hurt Americans is such BS, right? Like, everyone wants to be safe. Give me a break. We just want some sanity and some reality around what we're talking about. And when we've lived with so many lies and so many abuses, it's really difficult. And to your early point in the conversation, these are the things that people want to, bullies do. These are the things that folks that want to quietly and kind of tiptoe into new areas where they can amass more power they shouldn't have, and see how everyone reacts. So that's why, to your point earlier, I couldn't agree more. It's incumbent on all of us to react. It's incumbent on all of us to speak up, because if we're silent and we don't react, then, bullies get a little more, what's that old saying? You give them an inch, they take a yard. That's what bullies do.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, if we give him an inch, he's trying to take California, is what it feels like right now.
He's not going to take California, trust me.
Absolutely not. I was going to say, I've seen so many people talk about how Californians, Angelenos in particular here, are definitely not for any of this. Any foreign invasion that's happening right now is the federal government coming in. Yeah. And so, but the invasion language I want to talk about a little bit, because as you mentioned earlier, he's trying to abuse our wartime laws and act as if we are under an invasion. Can you speak very clearly and plainly? Are we being invaded?
No. In fact, it's so stupid. I mean, it's almost common. I mean, it's just so irresponsible and stupid, right? When they started this conversation coming down the little escalator when President Trump first ran in 2015 for his 2016 campaign, talking about their rapist and he was intentionally and recklessly exaggerating facts to get a reaction, to get people to support him. That's not what leaders do. You tell the truth. Yeah. Are there cases where there are problems with our immigration system? Absolutely. Does it need to be fixed? Absolutely. Can we do better to protect our borders in the right way? Absolutely. But you don't throw out the whole immigration system, and you don't scapegoat immigrants who are contributing to the lifeblood of our community, that are in our communities, that are our families and our friends and our neighbors, that work really hard to get a start in this country, so much like so many of our ancestors do, and to crap all over that basically is just, it's horrific, and it's irresponsible. And so no, we're not being invaded. In fact, when he first came down that golden escalator of his, the amount of people coming into the United States vis-a-vis people leaving the United States was actually slightly more people expatriating from the United States than coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So, tyrants do this kind of stuff, right? They create a new landscape that they make up, and they get people to believe that all your problems in life, all your stressors, economic, personal, they're the fault of somebody else. And we'll just start blaming them for all our problems. And pretty soon you jack people up into this frenzy that all their problems are the result of people that are different from them, look different than them, love different than them, I remind some of those folks, unless you are part of the First Peoples Natives communities of the United States, you came here from somewhere too.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So question, because this, as you mentioned, 2015, coming down the escalator, it's now 2025. We're in this for the long haul. We're potentially having to fight back against this authoritarianism, and we're going to have to sustain this fight. So for people who are in the communities, and I'm talking the chambers of commerce, I'm talking about teachers, families, et cetera, because this has got to be hitting everybody in different ways, like tourism, for example, in San Diego, I'm assuming is probably down. I'm looking at they're looking in Florida, they're talking about FIFA at the World Cup, looking for undocumented. Like, what? It's insane. So how can we build a coalition of people across the board who maybe we wouldn't have come together under any other circumstances, but now we're realizing, oh, there's benefit economically, culturally, to come together? How do we build that coalition?
I think we've started because of conversations like this, because of actions you're seeing this coming weekend across this nation, city after city after city, whether it's No Kings or the other organizing groups that are getting folks together to stand together, to be seen and to be heard by potentially the millions. And I think that we have a proud history of that in this country, particularly key moments in American history. I have faith. I mean, I don't want to be the Pollyanna, but we got this. We are more resilient as a society than people feel right now, I think. Because I think if you just check your gut and you think about your community where you live or where you grew up or where you work, we have some unique common DNA in our country. And when you start really directing harming individuals, and it affects more and more people, whether that's in the pocketbook or in their freedom or their family or their health, when it gets bad enough, and it's getting bad, it's in our DNA, man. I mean, Americans are like, And so I just, we're getting to that moment where more and more people are going, oh, wait a minute. I didn't vote for this. And I think it's in our character. I think it's in our soul as Americans. Like, yeah, we're imperfect and we don't always agree, but we're going to get to a point where, going to force more and more common cause with different groups of people to say, this is not what we expect. This is not who we are. This frivolous showmanship designed to scapegoat people and score cheap points with the ever shrinking percentage of the electorate. It's insane. And I think more and more Americans are beginning to realize how insane it is. And it's going to not be easy to fix the damage. And it's not going to be easy always to stand up. But I have faith in our resiliency as communities and as a national community. We got this. It's going to be painful, but we are going to be okay.
I like that. I agree with that 100%. I hate that we have to maybe hit a rock bottom in many ways, or that we're procrastinators when it comes to our activism. When we go, oh, oops, maybe if we had been steadily working on our rights and exercising our rights to vote, we wouldn't be in this position. but sometimes things have to get really bad for people to wake up and go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, we should probably do something about this. And so, yes, you mentioned the protests this weekend, and protesters are popping up everywhere. And I think that's really important. And we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I would love to hear what message you have for people who are in law enforcement or who are in the military, who are thinking of conscientiously objecting to what they're because I believe there's hotlines they can call, there's things that they can do.
And they should, because look, anyone who decided, we all have it, right? We all have friends, family, relatives, distant relatives who've done some kind of service in our country, whether it's in the military, whether it's in law enforcement, whether maybe it's in the nonprofit sector trying to help different folks with different issues. We have a lot of service in our DNA too, in our heart as Americans. And I think those folks who are in uniform, they just got to remember, we always take an oath to the Constitution, whether you are in federal official position, elected or otherwise, whether you are state or local. You all swear an oath, not to a person, not to a personality, not to a political party or ideology. You take an oath to the Constitution of the United States, and most likely to the Constitution of your state. And decency and honor demand that you be good to that oath and true to that oath. And that's who the allegiance is to the Constitution and to the American people, not to any person, especially if that person is behaving recklessly and often with disregard of the law, because that's what we're loyal to, is the law and to the Constitution. And I know that there are a lot of amazing people who wear a uniform, who do a very hard job. And let's not forget, they are often working class folks, they are middle class folks, they are people of color, they are every stripe, every orientation, and they're wearing a uniform. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to do something that they signed up to believe was noble. And they're being put in an awful situation. And I encourage them, when you see things that are wrong or off or untrue, that are illegal or unethical, if that's the case and that's happening, you have an obligation to speak up and speak out. Because again, the oath that all of us take is not to a person, but it's to the Constitution.
Thank you so much, Senator Padilla, for bringing it back to the rule of law and to an oath that actually needs to mean something, especially right now. It's what our communities need, it's what we deserve, and it's what the people want. So I'm incredibly appreciative that you were able to join Punching Up today, because it's mission critical right now. So for people who are in California and in your district, how can they support legislation that's coming out? How can they support? We've got the budget bill, and I know they're trying to put more money in there to fund a lot of these illegal raids. So what can people do at home right now?
You can see, those that are joining can see how to reach me on one of my accounts with links to all my social media, and through those links you can get to my office and you can reach out to us directly. And I welcome everyone to please engage, and please do that. We're going to continue to stand up and speak out and take action that protects not just the values I think that really most Americans hold, but certainly we do here in California, which we're proud of and we don't apologize for, because California values are about including everybody and giving everybody a shot, and trying to unify people. It's about addition and not subtraction. Mm-hmm. And we need to get back to that. We need to get back to seeing the humanity in one another, because we're all on the same planet and we all have to survive, and we all want a better future for our children and grandchildren. And so that can't just be talk. It has to be action.
I absolutely agree 100%. We are the land of plenty, not the land of get out. So thank you so much for joining me, Senator.
It's an honor, and thank you so much for having me. I like the punching up. I like up.
Oh, yes.
I'm old. It reminds me of an old Diana Ross song from the mid 80s, say how old I am, called Let's Go Up. And it was a very upbeat, the future, forward, upwards, upwards and onwards, and I like that spirit. So
I love that. And now I wish we were doing like some sort of like a carpool karaoke and we're all singing together, because that's what we could be doing, because it's Pride Month and
I
I want
know,
to
and
be
happy Pride to everybody
happy.
who celebrates Pride. So
Yes,
I think
happy
it's awesome.
Pride. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya.
Oh, I feel refreshed and energized from that conversation, because we are procrastinators. We do wait till the last minute to stand up for our rights, but by goodness, we're going to stand up for our rights. There are protests happening all throughout the country right now as people are saying, no kings here. And if you can't make it out to a big protest, micro protest. My thing now is like, I don't care if you're at Starbucks, at Target, don't go to Target. But if you're in any public space, just a little like, no kings here, to let people know where you stand on the issues. We have to come together as a country. There is plenty to go around here. Have you ever been on a flight and looked out, like as you're like flying across the country? Like sometimes like I've passed through and I'm like, there's so much land here. There's so much space. There's so much room for everyone. And so anytime there's somebody who tries to divide us and tell that there are not enough resources somehow to go around, and that we need to be at each other's throat, we need to look to who's saying that, because that's the person who's probably trying to hoard all the resources for themselves. There's plenty for all of us to be happy. So this has been Punching Up. I've been Maya May. I'm still Maya May. It's Wednesday. Yeah, we're going to make it through this very, very long week. And if you are protesting this weekend, please stay safe. All right. There's plenty of guides out there on how to protest safely and how to identify anybody who might be an outside agitator who is trying to kick up violence. So make sure to check out those guides. Make sure to get out there and protest. And then I will see you next Wednesday. Thanks.